I'm being indicted for you. My first thought went to, well, Jesus Christ died for my sins.
God help us all. And by God, of course, I mean Donald Trump, the savior. So I'm going to play for you this interview that NBC News did with a couple of Trump voters in Iowa that single-handedly broke my brain. And then I'm going to get to some analysis, whatever analysis is possible here, including some polling from Trump and Biden and some approval numbers from Trump and Biden. And I'll get to just how Jesus-like Donald Trump really is with a recent defense that he made. But first, let's play it. I'm going to play this. This is absolutely insane. I had to watch this. Now you have to watch this.
I want to play a little bit of an interview that NBC had with a Trump supporter named Bethany at a caucus event in Iowa. Let's talk about it on the other side.
I'm being indicted for you. My first thought went to, well, Jesus Christ died for my sins. Jesus died for me. And so it connects in my brain that way, like, okay, he's doing this for us as a country to make the changes we need to make, and he's the target where we don't have to be.
Holy, holy, holy Trump, God of power, God of might, heaven and earth are filled with your glory. How was that? I went to church enough growing up to to hear that one quite a few times. Donald Trump, Jesus Christ. What's the difference? They both sacrificed themselves for our sins. The sin of trying to steal an election. I don't like to blame voters because it's not necessarily the fault of people who are stupid. It is just, it's the world they're in. These two people seem nice. I'm sure they have busy lives. But at what point do you realize that you're fucking crazy? I'm going to get to whatever analysis that NBC attempted to do after playing that clip from Tim Alberta, who has a book about these people. He was also apparently an evangelical, so he has some insight into you're being brainwashed, I guess. But I just don't understand how anybody could be so stupid. I don't get it. I get not caring about politics. I get not wanting to follow it. I get being I get all of that. I do not get thinking that Donald Trump is sacrificing himself for you in any way. Here are some recent primary polling numbers for Donald Trump. Well ahead of the pack, 61.3%. It does. Let's be clear as well. Everyone here sucks. Like, it's not like, oh, too bad Ron DeSantis isn't doing better. Too bad Nikki Haley isn't doing better. They all have the same platform as Donald Trump does. And potentially, if they were to become president, they potentially may be more successful in implementing a conservative plan because there would be less scrutiny on people who appear to the average person as more sane, even though they're not, but can appear as more sane than Donald Trump. The difference with Trump, I think, is just that he is very clearly never going to have another election if he wins. He is very clearly going to steal democracy for himself. I think that is very clear. And the cultural impact that he has as well is clear. The shift from prior to 2016 to after Trump won in 2016 and beyond, the very clear cultural shift it was made. You know, even putting aside all the policies, it is now normal to see, you know, swastikas at rallies, in front of Disneyland. That was one example as well. Like, it's a very normal thing now to discuss, well, what kind of Nazi is this person? Because that was the major shift that was made. Stuff that not saying that wasn't already, you know, behind the scenes taking place, but it is now these people are now out in the open. and the impact it's had on society in a variety of ways, it has been clear. And the rise in hate crimes has been clear. So the cultural impact, I think, for me, would be the biggest difference from with Trump compared to these other clowns on the list here. It's just, I don't want to get too ahead of myself here. We're in January, but the election's this year. So this is something that should begin to be on people's minds. Joe Biden, not doing very well here. His disapproval rating is increasing, in fact. So he's now sitting at a 56.1% disapproval with 38.8% approving, a spread of 17.3. Compare that to Donald Trump, a spread of just 8.9, with his disapproval being at 51% and his approval or favorable being at 43.1. Not looking good. Winning re-election with this alone, like forgetting who he's going up against, it would be unprecedented for Biden to win re-election with these numbers. And this, I think, especially recently, goes a lot to how he's handling Israel. There are people within his administration resigning over how far right Joe Biden has been on the issue of Israel and the clear human rights abuses that are taking place. So, and that is animating a lot of the anger towards Joe Biden, especially from the younger voting bloc, which is very engaged, or should say a lot more engaged on that topic and human rights generally. So the way he won in 2020 was by getting out a lot of young people, a lot of people who don't normally vote, which is one and the same in many cases there. You're not going to have those people come out for you if you continue down this path of continuing these far right policies. So yes, there are, of course, benefits to Biden has done, or at least his administration has done great things when it comes to labor. Labor rights, unions has been fantastic, at least historically compared to other Democratic presidencies. But you can't ignore what we are clearly seeing right now. And a lot of this, most of this falls on Joe Biden and the Democratic Party. It is on them to get out people who don't normally vote to vote for them. Because you're not, I'll tell you what, you're not winning this person over. She's not going to vote for you, obviously, if Donald Trump is Jesus. So why are you trying to chase far-right loons who are not going to vote for you? You have to chase people who would vote for you if you gave them a reason to, and not just be, hey, look at Trump, which, look, I can argue all day that voting is a tool. Voting is, in most cases, especially in a general election, it's going to be about voting for who is less worst. Or less worst? Less worse. So that's how it is in many cases. But me arguing that is not going to solve the problem here. It's on the Democratic Party to solve the problem and Joe Biden to solve the problem. I want to get to the attempted analysis here from this is Tim Alberta discussing why he thinks this lady's lost her mind.
I think that what you see and what you hear there from Bethany has as much to do with what isn't happening inside of her church, inside of her religious community, as what is happening with Donald Trump. And what I mean by that is that in the absence of serious Bible-based discipleship, a serious Christian catechesis in which followers of Jesus are trained and are taught and are formed to follow him in the right way and to order their spiritual identity ahead of their political or cultural or tribal identities. In the absence of that happening, Ellie, what you see is that sort of conflating of a religious identity with a political identity, and you begin to assign a sort of messianic salvation capability to someone like Donald Trump, or just to anybody in the political arena for that matter. And I think that we can look at Trump all we want as a driver of this, and he certainly looms large in the evangelical imagination at this point. But I think that we have to get back to basics. We as Christians have to get back to basics and try to examine what is being taught, or I think more often what is not being taught inside of our churches, to avoid this sort of idolatry.
So I think he makes some points there. The fact that religion, at least from his perspective, is, or this person's church, I guess, likely is not pushing a message of love and kindness and acceptance, and instead has been a little more politicized, and an absence of any real message to these churchgoers. They have replaced that with Trump-loving disciples, I suppose. But here's my thing on this. It doesn't matter. These people are lost. The ones that would need to change them are the ones that are doing the brainwashing. So the brainwashers, the Trump disciples that are doing the brainwashing at these churches or in these groups, they're not changing their ways. So we can analyze and be like, oh, this person's this way because who they're listening to, the community they hold, led by some crazy people. That's great. You're not changing the crazy people who are leading them. So ultimately, the focus has to be on these people. At least, look, their families can deal with them. But in terms of politics and in terms of voting, they're gone. Forget about them. You have to focus on who you can win over and the people that you should be appealing to. And it's the work of, psychiatrists and the families of these individuals to deal with their insanity. But this is, let's get to how Jesus-like Trump is. Here he is discussing that you have immunity as president. And I'll get to the extension of this that his lawyers argued in court. But quick clip here.
It's a very sad thing that's happened with this whole situation. When they talk about threat to democracy, that's your real threat to democracy. And I feel that as a president, you have to have immunity. Very simple. And if you don't, as an example, if this case were lost on immunity, and I did nothing wrong, absolutely nothing wrong, I'm working for the country. And I worked on very hard on voter fraud because we have to have free elections. We have to have strong borders. We have to have free elections. Those two things, almost above all.
I love how his attempt to steal the election, the way he spins that is, he was working very hard on voter fraud. You tried to steal the election. That was you working or addressing voter fraud? Look, we don't have to try and debunk Trump. At this point, if you made it this far into the video, you, I'm sure, understand this guy is an insane authoritarian. But here are his lawyers in court. Trump lawyer argues presidents can order SEAL Team 6 to assassinate rivals.
Could a president order SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival? That's an official act in order to SEAL Team 6?
He would have to be and would speedily be, impeached and convicted before the criminal prosecution.
What if he weren't? There would be no criminal prosecution, no criminal liability for that?
Chief Justice's opinion in Marbury against Madison and our constitutional tradition and the plain language of the impeachment judgment clause all clearly presuppose that what the founders were concerned about was not.
I asked you a yes or no question. Could a president who ordered SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival who was not impeached, would he be subject to criminal prosecution?
If he were impeached and convicted first. And
so your answer is no.
My answer is qualified yes.
This is amazing. This is amazing. He is saying, he's essentially saying, you know what? Biden could go ahead and assassinate his political rivals too. He could get Trump, order that hit, and he should not face any repercussions unless he's convicted and impeached. If you're impeached and convicted, then at that point, okay, then we can go forward with charges. But if you're president, then no, you can do whatever the hell you want and get away with it. Now, some in the audience are likely arguing presidents already do that in a variety of other ways, like bombing countries that didn't do anything. And you would be correct. So maybe they should be using that argument. Hey, look at what Bush got away with the Iraq War. Why is Trump facing any repercussions for what he did when George Bush clearly broke the law? My response to that would be, okay, then you should also go after George Bush. But that's a whole other conversation. Being open about what he thinks Trump should be allowed to do, there's this. I don't know what to say to this. I mean, Jesus Christ, I guess. Trump, Jesus Christ, they would do the same thing. They would assassinate their political rivals. And I'm not going to play this, but this is the quote from the judge. I think it's paradoxical to say that Trump's constitutional duty to take care of that the laws be faithfully executed allows him to violate criminal law. And she's right. Like it's the president's job to take care that the laws be faithfully executed. How can you say that the president should be doing that if they themselves are violating criminal law? And you're excusing that criminal law. They should have full immunity from anything. I don't know. I had to find a way to shoehorn this in because I cannot just do a full video on Jesus Christ Trump over here. So it took me only a week to fall back into mental crisis mode covering this shit. I felt pretty good. Not gonna lie. I took a 2 days off during Christmas. Felt great to take 2 days off. And then felt like I had a new lease on life. Whole bunch of energy to cover this stuff. And then I saw this and it was just, all right, we're back at it. There has to be an entire shift by the Democratic Party to do something here. You have to, for once, listen to the working class. You have to listen to young people, listen to activists, listen to human rights experts. You have to move and be a party that actually tries to represent people. If you do not do that, if Joe Biden does not make the turn that he needs to make, then he is going to lose the election. And Donald Trump is going to be the forever president, as well as a part-time Jesus Christ.